Hello, geekies. So what have you been up to for 20 hours? Trainspotting 2, and yes, that's the only thing I'm going to call it because there's only one T2 and there will always be only one T2. It's directed once again by Danny Boyle, written once again by John Hodge, and it stars once again Ewan McGregor, Robert Carlyle, Johnny Lee Miller, and Ewan Bremner. This is about Mark returning to Scotland after 20 years of pulling the heist on his own best friends and dealing with the consequences of it, and we catch up to all our favorite heroin addicts. If you didn't check out my Geek Classic review on the original Trainspotting, which is a cult classic, I'll leave a link for that at the end of this video, and this is a movie that meant a lot to me. This is one of those rare, if not only sequel ever that I thought about when it was first announced, and I thought, this is one of those sequels that, yes, let me see this after 20 years from the original one, and not 2 years, 3 years, 4 years after. Our cast reunites once again, and after 20 years they have excellent chemistry on screen, and our characters are true to what they were, and true to what, if you think about it, they might become. And Mark Renton in this movie, played by Ewan McGregor, once again, he epitomizes and represents the criticism that Danny Boyle has to drug addicts, or to people who are addicts to anything that is dangerous for you. He encapsulates everything that someone who was previously addicted to some drug, a heavy drug at that, might become. Mark Renton in this film is a character full of regret, full of angst. He has something deep inside that he wants to let out, and he can't natural because of who he is. And that comes across beautifully in the movie through his character and his character story arc in this. You see, what Danny Boyle does once again is, not criticizing if you consume drugs. He displays to you the joys of consuming drugs and the joys that come with it. Be it being with your friends, which he also portrays as an addiction, be it drinking, be it starting a business in the case of this second movie. What he does to a genius degree again in this film is show you that life will not go your way if you start to deviate from a natural way, and Bagby also represents that. Remember Bagby from the first movie, that crazy head motherfucker who was addicted to robbing, and to killing, and to stabbing, and to fighting people in bars. He ups his game in crazy in this film to a T. Bagby in this film is completely fucking bonkers. He is out of his leash. Bagby is out of control in this film. He goes out of prison, he finds out that Mark is back. So how do you think that crazy motherfucker from the first film is going to deal with that? He does not let it go. The guy is relentless in his search for getting his revenge on Mark Renton. And this movie goes about it in the most violent way possible, in the most graphic way possible, but it also keeps that comedic sense. It also keeps being funny, but not in an unrealistic way. This movie is funny in every way that the original Trainspotting was funny. This movie is funny in the most realistic way possible. You would laugh in these situations if you saw these people, these certain types of people, doing the stuff that they are doing in this film. There are many psychedelic sequences in here that are so different and so unique, and that you see that they were able to evolve and to make these sequences in today's filmmaking way. They would not have been able to pull this off back in 1996, but here they take advantage of that. They take advantage of the last 20 years that went by, both in the lives of these characters and in the lives of film fans, film viewers, directors, editors, filmmakers in general. These characters are as volatile as they once were, and they make harsh and hot-headed decisions as you would expect from that. But once again, Ewan McGregor as Mark Renton, he can pull off one hell of a monologue. He has a monologue in here that you've seen in the first movie, and you probably have seen in the trailers, but in here it is so much impactful because of how it comes across, because of when it comes across, because of what you have seen to that point in the film and what will come after that. And Spud, played by Ewan Bremner, he is so charming. I mean, this guy is just fucking lovable. You cannot hate this guy. He is ingenuine to a point, and that point is very high up in the mark, my friends. And Johnny Lee Miller, man, this guy needs to get more work. I love this guy as Sick Boy. I don't watch his Sherlock show, but I have heard he's great in that as well. And Robert Carlyle. I've talked about Bagby enough. But Robert Carlyle in here, he shows he's not just Rumpelstiltskin, and his character, he's going through some situations that are not easy to go through for a guy who had a wife and has spent the last 20 years in jail. And just what he does is so Bagby-like, but is so over the top from what you are expecting of this character, and Danny Boyle and Robert Carlyle and everyone make it work in this film. Characters are great and story is great, but this movie kind of loses its charm in some parts. You feel that this movie knows that it is the sequel to this cult classic that many people only noticed years after, and that is coming after nostalgia. It's coming after that feel that fans from the original one will get after they realize how brilliant that first film was. And at some points, they approach it through criticism that there are many other movies that do that nowadays, but in some other parts, it also doesn't. It also feels like just like any other bad movie that's made out of nostalgia and just nostalgia. There's one brilliant scene where a few of the characters go to a certain place and they have a beautiful conversation that again captures the essence of what this film is and of what this film knows that it is, and of how people received the original Trainspotting. And this movie also knows that, which is very good, but it doesn't hold that high standard throughout the whole film. The editing in this, it's hard to criticize in a sense because it's never bad. The editing in a technical sense is incredible. This is great film editing. Not one shot needs to take longer than it does, not one shot needs to end sooner than it does. The thing is, with the editing in the first film, you saw a lot of freeze frames. You saw a lot of surreal imagery. And in this movie, you see that as well. But in the first movie, you had Mark Renton narrating throughout most of the film. Maybe 75%, if not more. In this film, you really don't. Two characters get in a fight near the beginning of the movie. It's not a spoiler, don't worry. And you have two freeze frames in that scene that really served no purpose and told no story. There was no narration, there was no flashback, there was not anything that needed to be freeze-framed in that, in a sense. When you had freeze frames in the first movie, it was because characters were surrounding each other, having a conversation, and then they were telling a story of what something had previously happened. And in this movie, you really don't have that. You just have people doing things or saying stuff that is happening at that moment, and then you have these weird freeze frames that really do capture the essence of the first film. But again, it's not very well done. There's also too many instances where the movie approaches the cliché route a little too much. It doesn't go that way by the end. I can only tell you that without spoiling it. And I was very happy with the ending of this movie. The last shot of this movie, the way they get through the credits is fucking perfect. But it does approach those narrative cliched routes that you were not expecting to see in a film like this. And again, it loses that punch, that charm that Trainspotting has. Trainspotting 2 is unique in its own way, and it's the rightful sequel to the original one. It is the sequel it should and it could have ever been. I am so happy with the sequel, but as a movie, I gotta judge it, and there are just some things that don't exactly fit. I was very happy to be with these characters again. I was very happy to be with these actors playing these characters again. I love the filmmaking techniques that Danny Boyle uses for the surreal imagery in this, and for the criticism that he has on people who use drugs and have used drugs before and try to move on with their lives. Bagby again, who was the guy who didn't consume drugs, who didn't touch that shite, as he said it himself. He's even worse than any of these guys. And you see how fucked up the lives of each and every person in here is. Danny Boyle returns once again in great form to his directing chair, directing the sequel to a cult classic that he created years ago. So do these actors, so do the editors. The story could have been a little trimmed out because it does approach cliches a little bit, but I fucking enjoyed this movie as much as I could, and I'm definitely buying it because Trainspotting 2 is definitely a martini. It is a good time, anytime. What did you think of Trainspotting 2, my beautiful geekies? Did you like it? Did you not? What are your thoughts on the original Trainspotting? Don't forget to check out my Geek Classic review if you haven't done so yet. Yesterday I uploaded my short film Baba Yaga together with my John Wick 2 review, so go check that out as well. And thank you so much for watching. You guys are the best. And if you haven't clicked subscribe or the bell, click both those buttons and join us so we can be geeky united!